Dear learners, in this part of the lecture, I am going to explain what are errors, what are sources of errors, how they can be induced, and how we can mitigate them in any instrument or a measurement system. But before moving, we should be at the same page about the definition of an error. That is, what is termed as an error or what qualifies as an error and what is not an error. So as far as measurement system and its output is concerned, any undesired output is called an error. Now the undesired thing has different forms, and this is what we are going to discuss. First, in any measurement system, an error can be induced at two different stages. The first one is during the measurement process, and the second one is during the transmission of data to some other point. During the measurement process, there are two types of errors that can be induced, namely systematic and random errors. Whereas whatever is induced into the data while transmission is called noise. Before we can remove this error or try to mitigate the noise, the foremost thing is we should know that what is the source of these errors so that we can do something about it. So if I quickly define systematic errors, then these are the errors in the output readings that are consistently on one side of the correct reading. That is, either all errors are positive or all errors are negative. Can you think of an example of a systematic error? Yes, you are right. Zero error is a type of a systematic error because, for example, if there is some zero error in a vernier caliper, let's suppose it has a zero error of 0.2 millimeters, then in every reading the output is going to deviate by 0.2 millimeter on one side of the true value. These systematic errors may be induced due to disturbance during the measurement process or due to some environmental changes. On the contrary, random errors are perturbations of the measurement on either side of the true value, and these perturbations or oscillations are random and unpredictable. However, for a truly random error, the amount of positive error and the negative error is approximately equal. For this kind of noise, the major sources include the electrical noise, which can be induced into the instrument if there are some electrical wires running around it, or the human observation of an analog meter. For example, if I give you an analog meter and ask you to read the value it is currently showing, all of you might come up with a different value. So if a human is observing and recording the output of some analog meter, then random error due to human observation will be induced into the readings. If we talk in detail about the sources of systematic errors, then the first one will be disturbance due to measurement, or we can also call it loading of the system. By loading or disturbance, I mean that the measured system is disturbed or displaced by the act of measurement itself. For example, if you want to measure the temperature of hot water contained in some beaker and you place a mercury in glass thermometer in it, some heat energy will move into the thermometer. Hence, the temperature of the water in the beaker will drop. Another example is of a flow meter, where orifice plate causes permanent loss in the pressure. Orifice plate is a plate having a small opening in it, and when the fluid passes through this small opening, there are pressure sensors attached on both sides of the orifice plate. And due to the pressure differential between these two pressure sensors, the flow rate is measured. However, by measuring this flow rate, a permanent loss in the pressure is observed. Another example where the system is disturbed during the act of measurement is from electric circuits. For example, in the circuit shown, if you want to attach the voltmeter to know the voltage drop across the resistor R5, then the resistor R5 is going to come in parallel with the internal resistance of the voltmeter, and hence the overall resistance between the node A and B is going to change. And due to this change, the voltage drop between node A and B is going to change. Now you must be able to appreciate why the internal resistance of a voltmeter is desired to be as large as possible. It is because as the internal resistance is coming in parallel with the load resistance R5, the larger the internal resistance, the more closer the net resistance of R5 in parallel with internal resistance will be closer to R5. Let's suppose the voltmeter which you are using over here in this example is a moving coil voltmeter. In a moving coil voltmeter, there is a coil that is carrying the pointer and the coil is mounted in a magnetic field. When the current flows through this coil, the magnetic field generated by the current flowing in the coil interacts with the fixed magnetic field. And hence, because of this interaction, there is a turning moment on the coil. This will turn the coil into a particular direction. We want the input resistance or the internal resistance of the voltmeter to be as high as possible. So the simplest way is to increase the resistance of the coil. But increasing the resistance of the coil will decrease the current and hence the magnetic torque which it is generating. And in turn, the pointer will not be able to move that freely. So to allow the pointer to move freely, we can use restraining springs of lower spring constant so that they won't resist the movement of the pointer. But decreasing the spring constant or using restraining springs of lower spring constant will require us to design the overall voltmeter quite carefully. So what we wanted was we wanted to increase the internal resistance of the voltmeter, but we ended up generating other problems. This is an inescapable fact of life that if you try to increase the performance in one aspect, you will generally end up decreasing the performance in some other aspect. This is the reason balance is always desired. Particularly in the case of voltmeter, we have find that balance so that we can get higher internal resistance and acceptable sensitivity of the pointer movement. This also gives rise to the use of digital instruments or active instruments, where auxiliary power is used to overcome issues like this. Systematic errors can very well be induced because of environmental inputs. Now, what are environmental inputs? These inputs are defined as apparently real inputs, which the system thinks that it is receiving. However, these inputs are in fact changes in the environmental or the surrounding condition. The instrument thinks that a change in environmental input or the environmental condition is in fact a change in the physical quantity. This happens whenever we are going to use the instrument away from the calibration conditions. I've talked about this kind of problem in the previous lecture as well, where because of change in environmental conditions, the sensitivity or different static characteristics of an instrument changes. Let me try to explain this thing through an example. For example, you are given a box that weighs zero point 0.1 kg when empty and are told that it might contain some candies. When we put that box onto the weighing scale shows reading of 1 kg. Now this 1 kg can be coming from different inputs. For example, there might be the real input and that would be 0.1 kg weight of the box and 0.9 kg weight of the candies inside that box. Now this would be a real input. Another possibility is that there is a 0.9 kg bias present in the scale. So the total reading is coming out to be 0.1 kg weight of the box plus 0.9 kg bias present in the scale and hence 1 kg output. The third and the most difficult case is that when there is a combination of some real input and the environmental input. That is, for example, 0.1 kg weight is of the box, which is the real input. Then 0.4 kg weight is of the candies, which is again a real input. and 0.5 kg bias in the scale. Or there might be any other combination of weight for the candies and the bias present in the scale. Therefore, whatever output you are receiving might be a combination of some real input and some environmental input. So it becomes more important to identify the sources of environmental input and the effect they are going to have on the system so that we can effectively counter this erroneous input. Other sources that can induce some systematic error into the system are the wear and tear in the instrument and the connecting leads that might degrade with time or might have a poor quality to start with, and they are dropping some signal into them. So we have seen some sources from where systematic errors can arise. Now I'm going to talk about how we can reduce or remove these systematic errors. Now there are many ways to reduce these systematic errors or to eliminate these systematic errors. The first one is careful instrument design. The more carefully you have designed your input, the less chances it will have to be affected by all the sources of systematic errors that we discussed. Another possible way of mitigating the effect of systematic error is the use of opposing inputs. This kind of method is specifically used where environmental inputs are causing a trouble. For example, in the millivoltmeter that is shown over here, the resistance of the coil might change as the temperature changes. So, if the resistance is changing, let's suppose it is increasing, then the current flowing through this coil might reduce, hence affecting the overall magnetic field that is being generated. And now what we want is, we want that whenever the environmental conditions are changed, that is, the temperature is changed, the resistance of this coil should not change. But this is something which we cannot control. What we can control is we can add another resistance in series with this coil. But this resistance will have a negative temperature coefficient. And what is a negative temperature coefficient resistance? These kinds of resistors, they decrease their resistance as the temperature increases. So if the increase in the temperature is increasing the resistance of the coil, then it will be decreasing the resistance of this resistor. Or it can be the opposite case. Whatever case it is, the overall resistance of the circuit will remain constant. That's why this added resistance is called compensating resistance. Another way to reduce the effect of sources of error is to use a high gain feedback. Consider this control diagram where the input voltage is converted into the torque by the coil, and then this torque is resisted by the spring and the displacement of the pointer occurs. This control diagram is specifically for a moving coil voltmeter. Now the environmental changes can change the constants associated with the coil and with this spring. You can see that the output X naught, that is the displacement, is dependent on the input voltage and the constants associated with the coil and the spring. But if these constants change, the output is going to change. And we want that because of the environmental changes, these constants should not change. So, can we control it? Now consider this control diagram. What we have done is we have introduced a feedback device, and that feedback device should have a large feedback constant. The feedback which is coming is called E naught, and this E naught is nothing but the displacement multiplied with the feedback constant. So now the output would be equal to the difference of the input voltage and this feedback voltage. This difference will be fed to the control system and it will be multiplied with number of different things, and we will end up with X naught once again. Now let me rearrange this equation by substituting E naught with displacement multiplied with the feedback constant. I will be left with this thing. If I move X naught to one side, you can see that the displacement is dependent on the input voltage and some factor containing all the constants of the included system. Now, if the feedback constant is much larger than the other constants involved, then we can ignore this one over here. And once it is ignored, we can cancel out all the constants present in the numerator with corresponding constants present in the denominator. And we would be left with feedback constant only. So now the displacement is equal to the input voltage divided by the feedback constant. Now, no matter how the environment is affecting the constants of all the other components involved, it won't have any effect on the output. Keep in mind, over here the environment can still have an effect on the feedback constant. But normally these devices are quite rugged and the environmental effect on these devices are quite manageable and lesser than the environmental effect on other components of the system. Apart from these techniques, we can also work on the calibration of our system. We will dedicate a full section of a lecture for calibration, so I won't be talking much about it over here. Another way is to manually correct the output reading, and you can follow this way if you know that what error has been induced in the instrument. This is typically a case where you already know that a zero error is present in your system and you manually correct the output at the end by subtracting that zero error from the final output. Moreover, you can use intelligent instruments that can sense the changes in the environment by using some extra pair of sensors and adjust their output accordingly.